So what we won't be doing in the show, though, is won't be talking about album sales, maybe a little bit awards and that type of thing. Mostly just shop talk, the kind of things that we would talk about, just a conversation like we would have backstage. I do want to get into your 14 Christmas albums, and if we do, we may not have time for anything else, but we'll go ahead and start there. Hey, we're rolling. Hello and welcome. I am Clint Black, and I'm so happy and scared to death a little to be talking in circles with Amy Grant. I'm a little frightened, just a little frightened. I've heard rumors about how you really are with people. And so I know you best from hanging out at the school.
That's right,
our kids as they were growing up and going to the games and yelling from the bleachers. I learned to yell from watching you.
Did you?
Which is why I'm so frightened.
Oh, that's good.
Going all the way back, and I'm sure you wouldn't probably characterize it this way yourself, but you've had to put up with other people characterizing your career as redefining the genre of Christian music, faith music, and really jump-starting the mass popularity of it. You really wanted to make faith music influenced by the music you loved most, right?
I didn't even have aspirations of a music career. Nothing, nada. I'm as happy in the audience as I am on stage. I had a great record collection, but when I was in high school, I got involved with a really vibrant youth group that was in a mixed income neighborhood, a church. It was right on the edge of the projects. And so, you know, I was a kid that went to church 3 times a week growing up. I was also, by the time I was in high school, going to Harpeth Hall, which is a fantastic prep school. And we had, it's not a Christian school, but every week on Wednesdays we had chapel. And so at a time in my life where I kind of left the church my parents were going to, and I was going to this hippie church down on Music Row, and it was just like all of this kind of Bible teaching intersected with real life. It felt like real life. I mean, I remember one time standing next to the preacher, and there was a bar, catty corner, across the front door of the church, and he said, "Preacher, I take my clothes off for a living. Can I go to church here?" And he said, "You give your heart to God, He'll tell you what you can and can't do. You are always welcome here." And I mean, so I'm there on the weekends because they've got a coffee shop with a band that never got famous called Dogwood. Anyway, but every weekend, and they're singing all this great music. So I was part of a wave, but I just was the most visible at the top of a wave. There were so many people who were writing great faith music. But I went back to my high school my sophomore year, and I had sat through another chapel, and they were like, they're just awful. And I just remember thinking, there's got to be an option to this, is all I thought. And I went to the head of school. Her name was Ida Nell McMurray. And I said, "Would you let me do a chapel program?" And until that happened, it never crossed my mind to get on a stage. And I was already singing. I sang James Taylor's song, John Denver, Carole King, "Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow?" Because you always in a chapel program want to do "We Had Sex Last Night" song. And then I was writing songs about Jesus. And I was like, you know, this is what it feels like, or to have or not have faith. And I just kind of sandwiched those songs in with my other songs. But I don't know that I ever would have gotten on a stage. But I sang that chapel program with a friend of mine. We had so much fun figuring out harmonies. I was a very average guitar player. And from that, I just kept writing. And within a year of that chapel program at my high school, a record company in Texas found out that I was doing this music. And I'm telling you, it was not very good. But it wasn't. But there were not very many people doing it.
They needed it.
I don't know, the door opened and I walked through it. And I've learned so much along the way from people I've worked with.
When I was a kid, I just got a job selling newspapers door to door, and I had to face rejection over and over and over. And so that naturally led me to the music business. Well, I can go be rejected there, over and over again. But what was it? I mean, have you thought about why you just decided? Because you had to decide. You couldn't think, I might be able to do this. If you asked to do it, you've decided that you can do it.
Right. I think my real gift is creativity. I love creating a welcome table, and music is a great way to do that. I love conversation. I like to listen. And so that always made me want to write songs that were not so much, hey, I'm checking out myself in the mirror. How do I look checking out myself in the mirror? It was more like I was more interested in writing songs that had a story behind them, or everything
A message.
A message, but it could even just be a message, I'm wild about you. A friend, But it always made me write things or sing things, even if I didn't write them, that I related to in my life. I hope what I'm doing is just writing songs as a woman, and as a woman who has faith. And for all of us, how do we function in life? How do we build relationships? How do we get up when we failed? How do we forgive ourselves? How do we love the world around us? All those things to me are just juicy. All those things are worth writing about.
So you're doing this, you're setting a new standard for this music, and people are dancing to the Lord now, and they're awake. And you decide that maybe you think of yourself as not as a Christian singer, but a Christian who sings?
Yeah, well, I tend to look at it sort of in decades of making music. So the first decade that I made music, was end of high school, all through college, the 80s. And a lot of that music was more thoughtful. It was. I mean, we were dancing and we were having fun, but I was also just trying to figure out life. Well, then along come my first two kids, 87 and 89. And it's time to do another record. I'm 29 years old, and all I know is that all they want to do is have fun. Everything's exciting. Everything is new. I just remember my kids, my son, I found it. And I go, what'd you find? I don't know what it is. He was that way about all of life. And so I'm sitting there writing songs going, I want all of this joy, all of this, woohoo, found its way into my music. I was pregnant with my second child, writing a lot of the music that I would call the beginning of the second decade. And so that was 30 years ago. Did a record called Heart in Motion, and wrote a song about my daughter, baby, and then thank you.
So it's a great record.
Yeah, and then that kind of continued a trend, and then toward the end of that decade, I went through a divorce. And so just trying to find my footing, the third decade started with doing a lot more. I went back and started recording hymns, just trying to kind of find my footing, really trying to find myself. And now I just sing all of it.
It's a true artist odyssey. I think a lot of careers we spend just trying to find something to say for the next album, something to pull from life. We want it to have meaning and all, but to be an artist going through that odyssey, not every artist has that experience. And if you can do that successfully and make it something that serves you so well, I wonder if everyone around you is really supportive of that, of the record companies, let's break out the hymns and, do whatever you need to do to find yourself, Amy. Just put it on a record. Their businesses, their companies. What was that like?
Right. I've always worked with really amazing people. I've been inspired by the creativity of the people I worked with, starting with Word Records, and a very conservative record company based in Waco, Texas at the time. And I remember in the 80s when I felt like, we need to get out there and have some fun. And I wanted to do songs that were celebratory and dancing. And anyway, but I remember talking to Dan Johnson, and I felt really emotional. I had signed a contract. I was in my mid-20s. I had signed a contract that I would make music that fit with their mission statement. And I just said, I feel like life is all of it, Life is the whole big picture. And sort of somewhere between the day beginning and running through the breakfast motion and then struggling with school and, oh, he broke your heart and we're having this conversation. And then there's a moment at sunset where you take a breath and you look at the colors on the sky and you say, thank you. But what makes the thank you so beautiful is all the other stuff that's happened during the day. And so, like talking to Dan Johnson, I said, is it okay? And I remember I was bawling my eyes out. Is it okay if I do songs that are all through the day, as long as I get to the thank you at the sunset? And he said yes. And then I was signed with A&M Records simultaneously, and I sit down, and the most wonderful head of A&R, his name was David Anderley, and he had worked with Sting, he had worked with so many people that I admired and respected. And he said, my first memory of anything Christian or a cross, he was Jewish, he said, was a life-size cross burning in my front yard. So his family had experienced incredible anti-Semitism, and he said, be sure and make music for me. Make music. And I just thought, oh my gosh, if we can't, this is the crux of communication that our country needs, is for all of us to come and say, this is my story, and I'm gonna lay it out for you to look at and embrace, reject, talk, and then go, oh, this is part of my story. To me, it was like, oh, I just had so many people in my life saying, make it inclusive, make it conversational, make it welcoming.
Looking at your influences that you've listed, I think I know, we were probably listening to a lot of the same stuff. Of course, James Taylor, he's in my list of top 2 favorite artists of all time.
The first time I had a backstage pass, and it was a massive green room at an outdoor venue, but I stood in a long line to meet James Taylor. And then, it was just like, what do you say? I love you with all my heart? No. But, but it was just like, thank you. That's all I could think of to say, thank you. And then I'm back in the line again, other shows, and then slowly over the years, there were opportunities for us to be in the same place. When my first child, we were invited to be a part of the Prince's Trust concert in London. We get over there, it was Robin Williams, James Taylor, myself, Art Garfunkel, and I'm sure I had somebody to help me with my son, but he was a baby. I had to have him with me all the time. And I remember James coming in and he said, give me that boy. And he put Matt's back to his chest and just, his hand under his seat, just held him like that. And my son was so curious and always so active, and I'm trying to snuggle him, and James just turned him around, gave him a front row seat to the whole everything, and that changed from then on my interaction with him. Life happens, and then suddenly the next time you see him.
Connection.
Yes, and I'm
Real.
sure that happened when you were, it wasn't just sharing a stage with Merle or being an opening for George. It was, you both had to slog through the horrendous crew meal that was, or fantastic, but you know what I mean? But suddenly you're just, oh my gosh, I'm positive the guy that was cooking this had a cigarette butt 2 inches long, and it fell in my salad, did it fall in yours? It's the shared things.
Well, let's get to the 27 Christmas albums you've made.
Okay.
I noticed it has to be 27. Yeah, you made 10 or so more since we sat down.
One a decade. I would just like to preface, I started young. One a decade, but I've been singing for 42 years.
I'm listening to these albums, and one of the things I notice, everybody will approach it differently. Yours, the arrangements are just unbelievable.
I started, my first Christmas record was in 1983, produced by Brown Bannister. And then the second, Brown produced, but most of it was arranged by Ron Huff. Ron passed away a few years ago, but he was such a brilliant arranger.
He arranged my Christmas album.
Come on.
You want to say how lucky?
He is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that second Christmas record, to me, that was really whatever picture I painted, he was the frame around it that really made you want to stop and listen. And then I worked with another wonderful arranger named Patrick Williams for my third Christmas record. And then the fourth one I did, and they've been repackaged different ways, but the fourth and final studio record I made was written because a lot of things had been big productions, but I had never imagined somebody solitary listening to a record. And there are so many people that are lonely at holidays. And I felt like I had done all of the trim the tree, isn't it beautiful, we're all together. And with that last record, I thought, what would it be like if you hated Christmas? And like if it were the worst time of year? Because I love doing that kind of music. And so I worked with 3 producers, but with each one, it was like, I want to sing both sides of the story.
How do you write Christmas music for someone who hates Christmas? How do you do that? Where do you start?
Just from something real. I mean, you can write a song about anything if you'll just focus on it long enough.
Yeah, but when you love it so much, my inclination would be to tell them how great it is, or to pull them out of that and all of those things. And immediately my mind goes to, well, what else would you do? Well, you get down in it with them, right?
Yeah.
You feel it with them and you discover why. Why is it a bad time?
I felt like I wanted it to be such a special time for everybody, but I couldn't figure out how to ever settle into a moment that felt like we were all together. And that's really one of the reasons I love doing holiday shows, is because I was that young woman that was like, make more food, wrap another present. And then the kids would go to sleep and I would be sitting there by myself just going, I don't even know how to connect these dots. And pulling out my guitar and going, I just feel like, whew.
I don't imagine you that way. It's hard to...
Well, I mean, my pendulum swings from east to west. I know, and I think everybody's does.
You can get there at Christmas. Still,
Yeah.
I mean.
Well, to me that's one reason, because just look at every business, the end of their fiscal year, all the advertising. It's like our whole economy is rests on this holiday. There's so much pressure. Everybody feels like it's supposed to be something. And so for those of us who are creative to say, in the midst of all the hullabaloo, let's create an honest conversation with music about the good parts and the hard parts. And you can just start with, I'm 60. I can start with, I wrote this when I was a kid, but even by then I had had loved ones that passed on. And I just remember thinking what felt magical about Christmas and writing a lyric. And I was in my young 20s, up in the attic, down on my knees, lifetimes of boxes, timeless to me. Letters and photographs yellowed with years, some bringing laughter, some bringing tears. But time never changes the memories, the faces of loved ones who bring to me all that, just that nostalgia. To me, you got a chance at that time of year. I'm the butt of a lot of jokes because of Christmas, but I don't even care. It doesn't matter.
I have one more question I want to ask you. When you get to heaven, if you could sing a song with anyone who's already there, who would it be, and what song would you sing?
Oh, man. Well, first off, when I get to heaven, I'm going to ask God if he can share CeCe Winans' voice with me. Woo! And,
It's a tough one, isn't it?
yeah, my dad.
Yeah. I get that a lot. So that's very sweet. And I know it was a tough choice, but after you sing with your dad, who would you sing with?
Elvis?
Yeah? Yeah. The King of Cool. What song would you do?
Maybe Hound Dog. Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to have some fun. Let's hope it's a long, long, long time from now. He'll still be there.
Yeah.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Amy Grant.